Welcome back. All right, so today's edition of the Power Rankings. I didn't overreact. I'm gonna say straight out before I get started, I'm not gonna overreact. I know there's always a lot of complaints, and of course downvotes, which YouTube has decided to start hiding from the general public, the whole downvotes thing. And yeah, so that's the way that goes. Tonight I'm using a different set of pucks than I've used for the other Power Rankings. Of course, I've got the Power Rankings board right here. I do not have a bunny rabbit. I had that in a video earlier today. She's outside having a nap. But yeah, so from 32 through number 1, let's go ahead and jump into this. Not a lot of big movers, to be honest. Because again, if you overreact, your Power Rankings don't end up having a lot. Because I don't want to drop a team down a lot and then have to move them right back up the week after. So number 32... back down one spot, it's Arizona. So yeah, the Coyotes, they dropped back to 32. That one victory brought them up to 31 last week, and now they're back to 32nd overall. For Arizona, this is kind of the way that works. They're 1-13-1. So I'm not expecting to see Arizona. I don't know how many games they're going to win. Number 30, dropping 2 spots from last week. It's been a fall. So before the season started, the expectation was, well, Seattle should be able to win its share of games, and they're not getting saves. They were out shooting teams. Now they're not out shooting teams. They're not getting victories. They're stuck on 4 wins on the season against 10 losses in regulation. It's been a rough first year because they're a first-year team, and that's the way it's supposed to work, Vegas. Number 30, dropping 3 spots from last week. Their Pacific Northwest brethren. So before the season started, there was a lot of debate about, hey, so Vancouver and Seattle's going to be a big rivalry, huh? If by that you meant fighting it out to see who's going to draft Shane Wright, yeah, absolutely. This was a really rough... the worst part, too, is that tonight they talked about the last time the Canucks allowed 7 goals on back-to-back nights. I remember that. He's like, oh, it was McLean and Urbe, and then it was McLean the next night. I'm like, yeah, I remember. That's when McLean was not playing very well, and they were ready to get rid of him, and that was when the goalie graveyard started in Vancouver, so good times. It's not going to be goalie graveyard here, but just graveyard. Just Vancouver's just graveyard. Where careers go to die. Number 29, Ottawa, down 1 spot from last week. So for Ottawa, they had the 6-3 win tonight over the depleted Penguins. Well, they're depleted. And so for Ottawa, they've got so many players that are on the protocol list, and it's unfair. But I can only use the board and have it towards the results. Ottawa was actually lower than that coming into tonight. They switched spots with Vancouver with tonight's results. So Vancouver just, they shouldn't be able to go lower than 30th. Notice I said shouldn't be able to. Number 28, moving up 4 spots from last week, is Chicago. So I do think that there's been signs, in a few games here and there that Chicago was getting it together. I think that, while the odds of them being able to come back and make the playoffs are still pretty slim, they definitely have been playing better the last couple of weeks. And while they were 32nd last week, I didn't feel like they were the worst team at this point. And I really think that Chicago's at least turning it around. We'll see if they can win enough games. They have to win a bunch back-to-back to really make it interesting. Number 27, moving up 3 spots from last week, despite the loss tonight, is Montreal. So that's 2 original 6 teams in the bottom row. That's 3 Canadian teams in the bottom row. So that's a thing. For Montreal, it's been really rough start. They're 4-10-2 now. And again, 16 games. You're 20% of the way through the season. It's bizarre, isn't it? That we're already 20% of the way through the season for some of these teams, which shows just how stuffed this schedule is. This is a pretty compact schedule. Not as bad as last year, but it's close. Number 26, dropping 4 spots from last week. Dallas won tonight. And I thought it was funny because tonight on Hockey Night in Canada for 32 Thoughts, they had Jeff Merrick. And Jeff Merrick was talking about the Canucks and how miserable things are in Vancouver. And then he talked about Dallas and how miserable things are in Dallas. And I was like, man, that's 2 of my favorite teams right there. This is why when people And I know there's accusations I have certain teams that are too high on the board, and yet teams I cheer for are in the bottom row. So, and Boston did not move up this week. So, yeah, it's just they beat Philly, but I didn't like the way they started in that game. Hudobin definitely helped them steal that game over Philly. I have tremendous concerns about Dallas, and I'm not sure how you fix it with Dallas. They need good, decent scoring. They even had that 6-3 loss against Vancouver, which didn't help Vancouver this week, and that game didn't help Dallas either. Number 25, dropping six spots from last week, Pittsburgh. For the Penguins, this really is a matter of they have so many players out. There's so much talent out of their lineup. It's really hurt their results. I do expect that they'll get Crosby. They'll have in their next game, they get guys back. I expect the results to start turning around. I don't think Pittsburgh's going to be this low again. I cannot see them being in the bottom row. But they've only won 5 out of 13. And again, when you're missing that many players, and tonight DeSmith was the starter because Jari wasn't available, Demang's your backup. Like, it's just, the numbers for DeSmith have been scary. I do wonder how long it's going to be before the GM in Pittsburgh makes some changes. I think changes will be on the way, but they might wait until they get healthier first. Number 24, staying in the same spot as last week. Some mixed results, but I will say Buffalo, they are still competitive. And they're 6-6-2. This is a league now where only 7 teams are below 500. Think about that. So 500 is the same amount of wins as regulation losses. It's a setup the NHL creates to give the appearance of teams having better records than they do. It's a big part of the reason why people get mad at videos like this, is because they'll look at their team's record and go, well, we have a winning record. But most of the league does. There's 25 teams that have a record of 500 or above. There are 7 that are below 500, which shows just how rough those records really are and how difficult it is for them to dig their way out, even though, again, it is still relatively early in the season, but we're around 20% of the way through. Number 23, moving up 3 spots from last week, is Detroit. Detroit gets out of the bottom row. I'm encouraged by some of the things we're seeing with Detroit. And again, Detroit and Buffalo being this high is an advancement over last season and over the year before. Detroit, I think, is on the verge of, maybe making that run at a wild card spot. And again, I know their overall record is decent. I'm just saying that I do have 22 teams ahead of them right now on the board. They did move up this week. If they have another week like the one they just had, they move up again. Number 22, moving down 1 spot from last week, is Nashville. So Nashville, it really is a matter of a team passes them. That's really all that it is. They actually had 2 teams that passed them, and they passed Pittsburgh. This is the thing, too. People will focus on their favorite team and say, well, my favorite team didn't move, or my favorite team. You have to look at teams that passed them and teams that drop below them. So for Nashville, 2 teams passed them, and 1 drops below them. The one that drops below them is Pittsburgh. So for Nashville, the Arizona game, what do you take from that? I mean, wins over Arizona, I don't even factor them into the power rankings. I just go, okay, so they didn't lose to Arizona because it's that bad. Arizona is that bad. They're on pace for 5 wins. That's, yeah. So again, it's a non-entity at this point. Number 21, moving up 2 spots from last week, Anaheim. It's generally agreed that this is a weird season for Anaheim, right? So you have Bob Murray, not forced. They didn't say they forced him, but he resigned. It was kind of a forced thing. But Anaheim's doing pretty well. They and the other California team that moved up this week, the team being LA, geographically very close to each other, and standings-wise, they're pretty close to each other too, and they're playing well. Now, Anaheim, it's a bit of a sloppier game. That's why I have Anaheim a little lower than some of the other teams, because it's not like these are pretty wins, but they're winning, so they're still moving up the board. It's a more gradual climb than LA made this week, but yeah, we'll see how this week goes for them. They have Vancouver tomorrow, so that's, again, I weight the victories by who you're playing against and how those games go, but for Anaheim, we'll see if they keep their winning ways up tomorrow. Tremendous start to the season for Troy Terry. He's been fantastic. Number 20, same spot as last week. New Jersey. The Devils, I do like some of the parts of their game. I know they miss Jack Hughes. Really, Blackwood's been fantastic. Bernier was okay today. The game against Boston might be a little more problematic on the New Jersey side because they sort of looked like last year's New Jersey against a team that they handled pretty well last year. So we'll see if that's just a one-off or if it's a sign of things. But again, New Jersey stays in the same spot as last week. And see, did they pass anybody? No, they did not pass anybody. And oh no, they had to have. They passed Pittsburgh. They passed Pittsburgh, and one team passed them. So they passed Pittsburgh, and LA passed them. LA's the one team that passed them. Number 19, dropping 5 spots from where they were last week. While I'm dropping things off the counter here, the Columbus Blue Jackets. For Columbus, it does look like, and they're below the playoff line too. If you look at the standings right now, they are below the playoff line. It does look like things for for Columbus are trending in the wrong direction. And that loss against the New York Rangers tonight, really good win for the Rangers and a troubling loss for Columbus. So Columbus takes a tumble out of the top 2 rows. We'll see how they recover from that. But again, the Metro is so tough. It is a very difficult division. And so, I mean, I even considered having Columbus at 20th and New Jersey at 19th. If you want to pause this video and then go into Photoshop and switch them, I don't know why you do that. That's just crazy. Number 18, dropping 5 spots from last week, also dropping out of the second row, is San Jose. And it's interesting because, you know, that loss against Colorado tonight, that's with everybody back. We'll see if they turn around. Now, again, with everybody back in the lineup, it throws things off. Last night, I watched the San Jose Barracuda in against the Abbotsford Canucks, and they get blown out 7-1. Probably in part due to the fact that all these guys are coming back into the lineup. It throws off your chemistry. So the 7 guys come back in the lineup for the San Jose Sharks tonight, and they lose 6-2. It is a relatively predictable thing to have happen, but other teams passed them this week. Other teams had pretty good weeks, so they get passed. Number 17, staying in the same spot as last week. I know they're winning, but again, for Vegas, they beat the Canucks tonight, and yeah, we'll see. For Vegas, they are right on the cusp of getting back into the top 2 rows. Now that Stone is back, I expect it. I expect Vegas to go on a nice winning streak. They're now 3 games above 500. And we'll see. We'll see how the Pacific turns out, because you have Calgary looks like they're falling off right now. The Kings are on a fantastic heater. The Oilers still look pretty darn good. I know they didn't have a great week, but they still look really good overall. And so who's going to fall out for Vegas to jump into the top 3? And oh yeah, Anaheim looked pretty good too. So we'll see how things go for Vegas in coming weeks. But they got passed. They got passed by 2 teams, because San Jose and Columbus are both beneath them, who were not beneath them last week. Number 16, moving up 2 spots from last week, is Colorado. What's interesting with Colorado is, so they win their last 2 games by a combined score of what, 13-3? Yeah. Anyways, that win over Vancouver was surgical, and then tonight they beat San Jose, and so 13-3 score. Colorado to me looks like they're rounding into form, even though they haven't had Nathan McKinnon for the last couple of games. There's other injury problems going on with the team. Their defense, though, scoring very well, and Darcy Kemper's numbers are getting better. So Colorado jumps back into the second row. Number 15, dropping 4 spots from last week, because I think other teams are doing well. This road trip has gotten very, very long, and it's wearing on the Islanders. But the Islanders will be playing at home soon. They're going to have a bunch of home games, and I am not going to be surprised when the New York Islanders end up back in the top row. So the Islanders dropped to 15th this week, but I don't expect them to drop much further. We'll see, but I don't expect them to drop much further than 15th. Number 14, up 11 spots from last week, which is ridiculous. I can't remember seeing a team go from this row to this row in a week. But the Kings, they look legit. So the loss tonight against Winnipeg, I didn't penalize them. I didn't move them down. I thought they played a very good game against Winnipeg. Winnipeg just managed to find the victory. It was a game that Hellebuck stole as much as anything else. So for me, the LA Kings, they look like a playoff team right now. They have been very, very good. And we'll see how long they can keep this point streak going now that the winning streak is done, but they still have the point streak going. See how long that goes. The Kings have been a lot of fun to watch too. And their goaltending's been really good. Their overall numbers look, really, really solid. And Iafallo, great start to the season for him. Number 13, dropping 3 spots from last week, is Boston. So, in the event that New Jersey had beaten them this week, I was prepared to take Boston and drop them down to that third row. I was prepared if they went in and if they laid an egg against the Devils and they continued their inconsistent play to say, third row they go. They've played a lot of top teams. They've played a lot of good teams. Their record should get better as they're playing against opponents that are beneath them in the standings. And that's where the rubber meets the road, right? That's where, if a team's going to stay in the top half of this power rankings, that's where they do it. If Boston plays down to other teams that they're against, they're gonna have trouble. So for Boston, they did drop 3 spots this week. They are currently 7-5. The record's not awful, but again, in a league where 25 out of 32 teams are at 500 or higher, that record becomes, anyways. Number 12, moving up 4 spots from last week, the New York Rangers. The Rangers have this really scary attack when it gets going. And people focus on Fox, or maybe they'll focus on Panarin, but there's a lot to it, and Strome is an underrated part of it too. Zibanejad's had a very good start to the season. I know not everybody's getting the goals that you would want to see, but the Rangers are playing really well as a team. Shesterkin, I didn't think had a fantastic game tonight, so they scored 5 goals. And that really is a key to being able to make the playoffs and get over the hump. So the Rangers right now, to me, look like a playoff team. They're 8-3-3. And, we'll see what happens. They don't have to play Calgary again. Calgary's the one team that seems to manhandle them. No idea why. That's one of those weird matchups, right? But, for the Rangers, it's been a pretty good start to the season. Number 11, dropping 6 spots from last week. Dropping way down. Calgary. It was a bit of a rougher week for Calgary. They had the overtime loss last night in Toronto, which was good, but still, that top row, there's some pretty decent teams on pretty good runs right now. And for Calgary, their record is starting to become a bit of a problem. They're 7-3-4, I believe. That's becoming a bit of a problem. We've won 7 out of 14. So I know the point streak went on for a bit. I know they're not losing a lot in regulation, but they're not winning enough games for me to keep them in the top row either. So Calgary takes a bit of a drop. I did do the video on, which team's going to make that drop, and it looks like it's going to be Calgary of those top 5 that makes that drop first. Number 10, moving up 5 spots from last week, Winnipeg. The Jets are right up there in the hunt for top spot in the Central. I'm going to be honest, I'm not paying any attention really to who's where in the overall standings right now, because it's so early in the season. So, Winnipeg being right up near the top of the Central, great, cool, because I did, sneak a peek at it a couple days ago. But I still think Winnipeg has more to give. I still, I look at that result tonight, and I say, Hellebuck kind of stole that game a little bit, but they're still winning. They're winning a lot of games. And so they leapfrog some teams here, and they move into the top 10. I think that's the highest they've been this year. No, I think they started the season. Got the book right here. They started the season. What is the highest they've been? Let's see. 16. And then 7th. They've been as high as 7th. And then they took a dive from there. So they're working their way back up towards the top row. We'll see if they can get there. But right now, they are 10th on the board. Number 9, moving up 3 spots from last week. I wasn't that discouraged by their loss to Philadelphia. So, the Capitals are more than Ovechkin, obviously. The Capitals are an excellent team. And I think that once Backstrom gets back, which eventually has to happen, right? The Capitals should get even better. Theoretically, they should get even better. I do think it's interesting, too, people talking about how, wow, Ovechkin's scoring without Backstrom. That's not really that big of a news thing when he's getting goals online with Kuznetsov. Him and Kuznetsov have had very good chemistry for years now anyways. So I'm glad to see that's continued. And I think it's really helped Kuznetsov get off to a really good start this year. And so we'll see how things work for the Caps. I think the question becomes if Samsonov, if he's not able to be, as good as Vanacek, do they look somewhere else? And hey, isn't it great that Seattle traded him back Vanacek? Because if this was Samsonov and Copley, right? So who knows what might have happened. Number 8, dropping 2 spots from last week, is Philadelphia. So for Philadelphia, I'm not going to drop them a lot. I know they lost against Dallas tonight and all of that, but they played a decent game. The score ends up being a little bit uglier than what I thought the game actually was. And that happens. But Carter Hart's been very good, and Philadelphia's still got a good record, so I didn't drop them down. Number 7, staying in the same spot they were last week. It's been a pretty good start to the season for Minnesota. Now they're 10-4. They righted a wrong on their record. One of their losses was against Seattle. So they righted that by going out there and beating Seattle tonight and acting like they realized that they lost to Seattle the first time around and saying, yeah, we can't do that again. And they just seemed more determined right off the opening faceoff tonight. So it was a very impressive game for Minnesota, and they stay in the top row. They're playing very well. They're good at coming from behind when they allow the first goal, and they're very good when they score the first goal. Things are going pretty well for Minnesota. And I think they're a team, too. Looking at Winnipeg, looking at Minnesota, they're both teams that I think can get better. Minnesota can definitely get better at their starts to games, and then who knows what happens. Number 6, moving up 3 spots from last week. They're back in the top row, and that's Tampa. The battles between Tampa, Carolina, and Florida are becoming really entertaining, and those battles, I think, are going to be entertaining right up until the playoffs. And honestly, I think Tampa and Florida are really close to one another. And the best thing is that Tampa, Florida, and Carolina are built similarly. They play a similar game. And so it makes it really interesting when they're against each other. It's very much a chess match, but not like a boring chess match, sort of like, a chess match with fireworks. So it's a lot of fun to watch their games. And again, the chess match part is where they're not allowing a lot in the middle. Sometimes they're not getting a lot through the middle either if they're against Florida or they're against Carolina, but they're fun games. And so I'm very encouraged by the fact that Tampa has turned it around after a slow start. Talk about the Stanley Cup hangover and all that. Having won back-to-back cups, it's understandable if they get off to a slow start. Plus, without Kucherov, without the depth guys they had last year, it can take a little while to adjust. I think they've adjusted. Number 5, dropping 1 spot from last week. 1 is St. Louis. The St. Louis Blues, I didn't think that losing tonight against Carolina was anything to hang your head about, because Carolina is one of the best teams in the league, if not the best team in the league right now. They played a good road game, but Buchnevich looked good. Tarasenko's playing just as well as he was playing, say, 3 years ago, so before all the shoulder problems. And yeah, if you're a Blues fan, right now, they're right there. They are right there with Minnesota, with Winnipeg, in a 3-way race for that division that was expected to have Colorado as one of the top teams, and now Colorado's kind of waking up. So while early in the season the Metro looked like the best division, now the Central, Arizona and Chicago. Never mind. Number 4, moving up 4 spots from last week, is Toronto. The Toronto Maple Leafs have got it going. What's interesting is that for Toronto, it is the big 4, right, that get a lot of the goals, but now Kasha's started scoring. Bunting's still getting a lot of opportunities. Kampf gets a goal tonight. Riley finally gets his first goal of the season. So there's a lot of encouraging signs. Plus, Jack Campbell is playing some of the best hockey of his career right now. So Toronto definitely looks like a team that A, should make the playoffs, and B, people were writing them off way too early. So Toronto, solidly now in the top row. I have them at number 4, and we'll see what happens this coming week. But Toronto looked, pretty good tonight against Buffalo. They eked out a win over a Buffalo team that is very competitive. While they are 6-6-2, which is at that 500 record and is below a lot of teams in the league, they're not an easy victory this year, as was expected. They were expected to be basically about as easy to defeat as the Coyotes. that has not taken place. So kudos to Toronto for making it into the top 4. So the top 3 are the same as last week. I didn't want to overreact. The Oilers drop 1 spot to number 3. Oilers jersey here. Hockey fights cancer and all that. And so the Oilers I have at number 3. I think that while it was a rough week for them, absolutely, yes, I also think they should bounce back. Their power play is still at a ridiculous level. You're not going to win every... It's an 82-game schedule. Teams are going to have those lulls. And I don't want to overreact to a team going through like a bad week. So that's why I kept Edmonton in the number 3 spot. And yeah, there were a couple of nights this week where I thought, man, I'm going to have to make massive changes. I even had an idea at one point in time where I thought, you know what, just redo the whole thing. And then I thought, no, you just don't. That's a whole other headache. And then I'm opening it up to headaches for the rest of the season, right? Because then I'd have to reset everything about once every couple of weeks, or maybe after 1 week, or right? So yeah, don't want to do that. Number 2 on the board, they had a rough week. Florida had a rough week. Not going to lie. But they're getting points. They haven't had their best games over the last week. But again, teams are going to come back to earth. And for Florida, that's what's going on right now. But I think they're still one of the best teams in the league. I don't think that they're going to go on a massive losing streak that goes 7, 8, 9 games. And again, tonight they played well against Tampa. They really did. And, an overtime loss, it's like, when Carolina and Florida are against each other, I don't want to penalize them too much for one result one way or the other. So yeah, Florida ends up being number 2. And if they have another really rough week, if they lose, say, 3 or 4 games this week, they will end up getting bumped down. But for me, I still think Florida is one of the best teams in the league. They just had a bad week. That happens. Number 1, also, moving up 2 spots from last week, they're back to number 1. They were number 1 2 weeks ago. Now they're number 1 again, and that's Carolina. They're 11-2. So they were 9-0. Then Florida takes them out. Florida goes to 10-0-1. Now Florida's 10-2-3. So I'm sure there will be those that say, well, that's it. Florida's done. But I think it's a bit too early to say that. And for Carolina, 11-2 is a pretty solid record. So honestly, I still think Carolina, Florida, and Edmonton, I still think are the 3 best. Again, I'll keep a close eye this week. And if I see, really lackluster performances by these teams continue, then I'll start moving other teams around. Tampa Bay has a really good chance to move up. I think Minnesota, Winnipeg, both playing really good hockey. And of course, if LA can keep up this kind of pace, if LA can keep up this points streak they've got going, they're going to keep moving up. I had a hard time not putting them ahead of Boston, but I thought, well, they've moved up 11 points. That's pretty good for a week. So, and again, Boston beat New Jersey, so I thought, well, they'll bust down. I don't want to bust them down too much because I think, again, overreacting to one loss, overreacting to one victory can be a problem too. So, like with Vancouver, they lost 2 games where they allowed 7 goals back-to-back. So that, I don't think, is an overreaction to say things are falling apart for Vancouver. And according to Reddit and Twitter, things are falling apart for Vancouver. So, yeah, there you go. Let me know your thoughts, as always, in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happen upon this video. This is the toughest one I've had to put together. Not going to lie. I'm happy with where I have the teams because, again, it's more of a looking out to next week and saying, I think these teams are in the best position. More than, well, this week this team played badly, so, which is how I did the power rankings 3 years ago. And it just became a nightmare. So you'd see a team drop 7 points one week and go up 8 points the next week and then maybe drop, and it just, no. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It means a lot. And yeah, another set of pucks. There are still other sets of pucks that I'm going to be able to use for these videos before I go back and cycle through them again. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you guys again soon. And remember, in the link below this video is the link to the Cancer Month, which of course the NHL is doing. So I thought this would be a really good time to tie it into West Coast Kids, which is a cancer charity that I donate to. and that I'm partnered up with. And at last count that they gave me, $600 had been donated by subscribers to this channel to that charity. It's not including money that I've donated as well. And when it's all said and done, I'll give you guys a total at the end of this month, and we'll see what we can do. The money goes to a really good place. If you go through the link at the bottom in the description of this video, it takes you through and you see where the money goes. They show you where the money goes, and it's great. So thank you guys so much that have given already, and that's for $5, $100, wherever people have given. Everything counts. Thanks for that. I'll talk to you again soon.